Hi guys, today we're talking about volume. So first, watch the video. I'm going to fill in the video study guide below. Then scroll to page 2 and complete the practice problems. And finally, scroll to page 3 and check your answers with the answer key. All right, let's get started. So let's start with the volume of a rectangular prism. We're trying to find out how much 3D space is inside of this shape. In other words, how many cubes would fit inside of this rectangular prism? To find the volume of a rectangular prism, we use this formula. Volume equals length times width times height. And one example of why we'd want to find volume is to figure out how much water would we need to fill up this rectangular fish tank. The first thing that I do is I label my length, width, and height. Now for a rectangular prism, it's okay to label these differently than me. The reason I do it is so that later when I need to plug into my formula, it's easier for me to find those numbers. Now it's important to always start with your formula. So each time I'm going to write down volume equals length times width times height. Then I'm going to plug in for my length, width, and height. My length is 2, my width is 1.4, and my height is 3.5. Next, I'm going to multiply those three numbers together using a calculator. And my answer is going to be 9.8 meters cubed. Now for volume, your units are going to be cubed because you're trying to find out how many cubic units can fit inside that rectangular prism. So that's how many cubic meters could fit inside of this rectangular prism. Kind of like above. See how these are little cubes? If you imagine that each of those cubes have a side length of 1 meter, then 9.8 of those cubes would fit inside of that rectangular prism. Moving on to my next example. The first thing I'm going to do is just label my sides as the length, width, and height. This just makes it easier to find the numbers later when I'm plugging them into my formula. All right, so then you just have to write down your formula and plug in the numbers above. Once you multiply them on your calculator, you'll have the volume for the rectangular prism. And the answer is 100 centimeters cubed. This example is different. It says find the missing side. It has given us the height, it's given us the width, but it's asking us for the length. The other piece of information that they've given us is that the volume is 15 millimeters cubed. So when I plug into the formula, I have to start by plugging in 15 for volume. I don't know the length, so I leave that as a variable. And then I plug in my width and my height. So you're going to notice that the only variable I have left is for the length. The right-hand side of my equation can be simplified if I multiply 3 times 1. So I'm going to rewrite this as 15 equals 3 times L, or 3 times the length. Now I just have to divide both sides by 3, and then I've solved for the length. I figured out that the length of this rectangular prism is 5. Keep in mind that we just solved for length, so the unit should be just millimeters, not millimeters cubed. All right, our next shape is a triangular prism. And we call it a triangular prism because the base is a triangle. I tried to outline it. I did a pretty bad job, but you guys get the idea. Now, since this is a different shape, we're going to use a different formula. So the formula we're going to use for a triangular prism is volume equals 1/2 ABH. And I'll go over what each of those mean in a second. And a famous example of a triangular prism is the packaging on the Toblerone chocolates. Okay, back to the formula. First, check out the triangular base. A is the height of the triangle. B is the base of the triangle. They have to be at a right angle to each other. H is the height of the prism. It's the dimension that connects the two triangular faces together. And there's a half in the formula because a triangular prism has half the volume of a rectangular prism with the same dimensions. For my first example, I'm going to start by writing down my formula. And then to look at the dimensions, I usually trace the triangular base. That helps me see the height of the triangle is 5. That's my A. The base of the triangle is 12. That's my B. And then H is the height of the prism. It's the side that connects the two triangular bases together. So all you have to do is plug those numbers in and then multiply to find your volume. And the volume of this shape is 240 inches cubed. Okay, next example. I start by writing down the formula. Now I'm going to label my dimensions. So I trace the triangular base, and I see that the height is 12, so that's my A. The base is 5, that's my B. And the height of the prism is 7 because that's the side that connects the two triangles together. Now there's this weird dimension up here, 13 centimeters. That's this side of the triangle. We don't need that dimension to calculate volume, so please do not use it. It is set there as a trap. Only plug in the height and base of the triangle and the height of the prism. And once you multiply those together, you find that the volume is 210 centimeters cubed. All right, last example. And this example is different because it's asking us to find the missing side of this triangular prism. It's saying find the missing side. The volume is 135 centimeters cubed. Find B. Always start by writing down your formula. Then take a look at the information you were given. They gave us the volume. So instead of the letter V, I'm going to plug in 135. Now let's see what else they gave us. Looking at this triangle, they gave me the height of the triangle is 5. They didn't give me the base of the triangle, and they gave me the height of the prism is 9. So I can plug in a value for A, and I can plug in a value for H. And you're going to notice that B is the only variable left. So next I'm going to clean up the right-hand side of my equation by multiplying the numbers. By multiplying these numbers, I made a more simple equation. 135 equals 22.5b. And the only thing left to do is divide both sides of my equation by 22.5. The base is 6. So what that means is that the missing side length is 6 centimeters. I'm not going to say 6 centimeters cubed because we found a side length and not a volume. All right, go to page 2 and try the practice problems. Then go to page 3 and check over your answers with the answer key.